Hello, everyone. Welcome to Flickering Myth TV. My name is EJ Marino, and I am so excited to have two amazing guests. We have Michael Paszt from the director of this new documentary, Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. And we have Vampiro himself, Ian Hodgkinson. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Dude, you just fucked that up so bad.
Thank you. Oh, no.
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
Say my last name again.
Hodgkinson.
Okay, you're all right.
See, trying to get it all out at one time, I knew I was going to mess that up. That's why Vampiro's the easiest name.
Yeah, I would say. you took a swing, and you did good.
Thank you. That means a lot.
You did good.
So I wanted to start this off by saying, what an incredible documentary. I thought I knew your story of Vampiro. I thought I understood how Michael would tell this story, as you would see so many documentaries. Let's start off at the beginning with the life. You just jumped us into a world. Now, Michael, what drew you to wrestling? Were you a fan? And what drew you to doing this about Ian's story?
First and foremost, I'm a fan. I've been watching wrestling since I was like 5 years old. So I grew up with it. I love it. I moved to Mexico City years ago. And that's where I ended up meeting Ian. I was originally I was reporting for Super Luchas, Lucha Libre magazine down there, and got to know the culture, the people. And then fast forward, 18 years later, and I bumped into him in the airport, and we started talking, trading stories. And then he told me that he was commuting from Northern Ontario to Mexico City every week, and then going to LA, and then flying back again. He said he'd be back on Sunday to take his daughter to school, because he was a single dad and all that. And I was like, wow, this is a story to tell. Because, we complain about going on the subway, commuting, and here he is commuting between countries on a weekly basis. So I thought that was that was the catalyst for this story.
Well, you definitely found a perfect person to tell the story, because Ian, your story really touched me. I loved all the wrestling stuff, all your fun history, learning the business from the behind the scenes, but your stuff as a father. You were so awesome in this documentary. Seeing you with Dasha, you raised a daughter I want to be best friends with. I would see her in this documentary and be like, she's the coolest person ever. I want to know something about you personally. What came first for you? Wrestling, horror movies, or punk rock?
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to ask me the chicken or the egg. Wrestling, horror movies, or punk rock?
Yeah, they seem to be such big parts of your DNA. So I'm curious of what you fell in love with first. What was your birth as the weirdo you are now?
Did you just call me a weirdo, you little motherfucker?
Yes. And I mean that coming from one weirdo to another. You are such an awesome icon for that.
I'm just kidding, man. I like making you nervous, dude.
You are a very intimidating person. For as sweet as you are, I just watched a whole documentary about you being a very nice guy, and I'm like, oh, no.
I think, and thank you for that question. Finally, I don't have to answer anything about WCW, which I know you're going to ask me about in a minute, so that's cool. But I believe it was a mix of see, my dad was a truck driver in the 50s and 60s, so there was a lot of rockabilly and early rock and roll around my house. And my first record albums were Chuck Berry and Johnny Cash. So I had that rebellious music since I was little. But when I was in the tail end of the 60s, Creature Feature was on TV, and Dark Shadows and The Exorcist. So I remember I was petrified of Dark Shadows. And I just was absolutely in love with the old English Gothic clothing, like the fluffy shirts, the ruffly collars, and I obviously used that as Vampiro. And that was my first thing. I'll never forget it. I don't remember it. I just remember a scene that somebody was being walked to the gallows, and they were going to execute this person in Dark Shadows. And I was taken from this universe and put in another place. From that day forward, I was just in love with horror movies and things like that.
Well, that's awesome. I love that history of horror. I am a big buff, as anyone can see behind me. I'm a Friday the 13th person. So yeah, I just love seeing you bringing horror to wrestling. Growing up, I loved wrestling. I loved horror, and you were kind of. I
Dude,
know
you
there
know
was one.
it's though, right? Like you're my friend, you're my homie. I'm just kidding when I'm playing. I
Oh,
do that.
absolutely.
Okay.
No,
It's really
I thought you did such a good job of bringing it to it, and I've always appreciated you for that. Something also I also appreciate is you two captured a very interesting wrestling event with the Triple Mania 25. What was it like backstage? You guys captured such a hectic environment. Did you know, Michael, you were getting into something that was so crazy? And Ian, how did you handle all of that? Because I give you credit. That seemed to be a wild evening.
Dude, I'm fixing my computer, interviewing you, texting my mom, and playing video games right now. So that WrestleMania thing was easy. Michael?
I knew it was going to be big. It was the biggest, event for the history of the company. So being put into that moment, we got dropped in there. It was crazy. For me, it was a dream come true because I love lucha, and to be, there for the 25th anniversary was insane. So part of me was kind of like, fanboy watching, but of course we have to film as well, and take it all in. It was cool because there was only two of us basically in we were filming. So when we got dropped in there, we got dropped into like a snake pit. And you've got everybody, and everybody is alpha, just everybody's got these big egos, and you kind of have to navigate. You look at one person the wrong way and they'll eat you alive type thing. So we kind of we gave everybody their space, and we just kind of we observed everything. And so we were fortunate to get a lot of kind of, great footage shots and all that by being like a fly on the wall. And then of course the whole thing was, the game plan, because everything it is organized chaos. That's what it is. It is totally organized chaos. And you can quickly lose track of your filming and running around and all sorts of stuff. But the whole game plan was like, let's just follow Vampiro, and the drama will follow him. And that was it. Because the one thing is that a lot of people don't realize is all the different hats that he wears. You talk to him on the internet, and he says this, people talk about him on the internet, and they don't know the backstory. They don't realize all the different jobs that he's doing. And it was just for us to sort of capture that was really, really cool. But definitely organized chaos. It was a lot of fun, pretty intense. I think Ian put it best when he says it's a bit like prison. We have to kind of follow him around. He protects us.
What's the opposite of alpha?
What was that?
What's like? There's alpha, and then what else is there? Like, what's the opposite?
Beta.
So I'm beta. I'm a beta kind of guy.
Oh yeah.
Yes. That's not how I would describe you, my friend.
No, you asked. I'm telling you, you don't believe me. What can I say?
Oh, this also kind of, just seeing that event, and now I'm one day away from going to my first wrestling show of 2020. I'm very excited to go back to it. It's a fun AEW show since I'm in Florida. Ian, is there any newer wrestling you can watch, knowing that you've influenced directly by working with them or indirectly? Is there wrestling you can still watch as a fan, or does the worker brain or the artist brain take over?
That's I watch what I like. I think it's like music. Like I like the Ramones, and there's a million bands now that have been influenced to copy the Ramones, and it's not my thing. I listen to the Ramones, and that's pretty much it. My diet of wrestling is Japanese wrestling from the late 80s, early to mid 90s, the All Japan, Kawada, Misawa, those guys, Kobashi. I spent years there. I'm a fan of that. I've got a major collection. I watched, if I ever watch it, which I don't, I watch that stuff. The new stuff I can't watch. I support it, and God bless them, and I hope they make as much money as they can. I hope they save it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope that the fans continue to appreciate the product and the industry. But I've watched a little bit of it, and it just seems so infantile. It's like people aren't stupid. We're living in times where, you know, there's riots on the streets.
Mm-hmm.
People are starving. People are dying. Economies are changing. The governments are falling. People are dying. People are disappearing. There's real world violence. So pro wrestling is supposed to emulate that. It's supposed to be a storytelling situation where it's good versus evil. So if there's no suspense and there's no drama, how do you expect me to emotionally invest myself in a character that's just doing gymnastics? They all look the same. There's no storyline. And then you try to be an actor and convince me that your character is somebody that's going to intimidate me. It's really, really poorly done. And yes, there's millions and billions of dollars behind it, and the fans are supporting it. It can be done differently. I think there's too much emphasis on these creative teams where you have a picnic table full of 50, 60 guys who have never been in a gym, let alone a wrestling ring, dictating what a fan needs to see to fall in love with pro wrestling. It's not that hard. When you go see Star Wars, there's good and there's evil. You want to be entertained. I don't need to see a bunch of dudes that are overweight, full of steroids, telling me that they're tough, wearing spandex, jumping around, doing fake violence. It's not even believable. And I get in a lot of trouble from my coworkers for speaking like that. But hey, fuck. It is what it is. You're asking me, I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. It's almost like going to see the Rolling Stones and then finding out they're playing playback. It's like, what? I wish that the creative, if these investors and these owners of these companies have so many millions invested, fucking back off. A pro wrestler knows what he's doing in the ring. Let him go. Stop putting him in a position where he has to do this bullshit type of work and get laughed at. That's just my opinion.
No, I think you are very right, and I think that you said it in the doc. Yes,
I'm always right, dude.
Good to know. I will make sure. But you do have a point in the documentary where you do say you don't play a character, you just living, and I think that's what I wish more of the modern wrestling was. Is you weren't playing a character, Vampiro. That kind of they bled into each other, and I see that in punk music when you see someone playing the character, you see that person. Oh, you're not really that type, and I think that was something I would love to see in modern. That's why I loved when you were blessing the children in Lucha Underground with so many of your wisdoms and stuff like that. I think you did such a good job raising a generation there.
Thank you, but you know what? I'm nobody special. I'm no different than any other performer. You asked me my personal opinion. Is it right or wrong? I don't know, because you need all kinds of energies and characters and personalities to make a pro wrestling card work. So maybe I'm the rebellious analytical guy who's a little hell-bent on sticking to what works in a logical mind, right? As far as storytelling goes. But you need the guys to do the crazy dives off the roof, and you need a little bit of everything. That's why pro wrestling is magical, because there's not one formula, and it'll never repeat itself every single day. Even though they're the same performance, it's different. Mm-hmm. It evolves on the spot. And that's something that you can't explain because you haven't done it. That's why these creative guys don't get it, because you haven't gone through it. I can wrestle with you 7 days a week, and every single time it'll be different. Not because anybody's telling us what to do. It's because we have that bond, that trust. We listen to the people, and the people dictate what we do. You can't do that in the big companies, no matter what's happening and no matter what you want to do, because you have that intuition to listen to the people. You've got to do what you're told by script, or you're going to lose your job.
Yeah.
And that's where the disconnect is. And that's something that I have a real hard time with. It's probably why I'm not in the business anymore.
I think you're still a very valuable asset, and just that little bit right there, I want wrestlers to know growing up, like, listen to what you just said there, because you were very, very honest, and I think that's what I loved about this documentary, is you both showed such a different side to this with the behind the scenes. We rarely get glimpses. I mean, we had a huge wrestling documentary this year with the David Arquette one. I also watched the Danny Trejo documentary this year.
Don't put that name in wrestling documentaries. You had a guy who participated in a few matches because he's a fan and because he's a star, he got in the door. Don't fucking compare that documentary to this documentary, dude. Just say there was a documentary by Vampiro who's rocking the world, and this other dude, David Arquette, needs a movie, so they titled it as a wrestling documentary.
Yeah, but I just think you both definitely showed different aspects of it, and I think yours was
dude, are you okay, man?
Yeah.
Are you all right, dude?
Yeah. No, I just like... I truly just thought yours was so much more detailed than anyone else's. I've seen enough, the behind the mats and all of those. Yours was just so personal. And I think that's what I loved what you and Michael did with this, was do a very, very personal documentary that I think is beyond a wrestling documentary. It was a good story about you. So I think you guys did such a good job with showing this. So thank you guys for that.
Give me a hug.
Oh, thank you. I know I have one big last question. I think you two have a wonderful minds together with what everyone Ian knows to what Michael knows as a filmmaker. Is there another documentary you two will work on in the future? Is there something like, could you please do a documentary about juggalos just for me?
I'm doing it now, man. What do you think I'm doing? That's what Jackie's popping in and out here. I'm doing part 2 as we speak, brother. As we speak, we're doing part 2.
That's awesome.
And I'm going to even show you this bilingual. Look, wait, you ready? We're doing part 2. Oh!
What about you, Michael? Do you like returning to this world or wanting to work?
For sure. But I love sports-themed documentaries, wrestling, of course. I'd love to do more. You could make a whole documentary based around Ian and Milli Vanilli. There are so many stories and so many things that I'd heard about that I was like, wow, that we couldn't talk about, but there is, it's amazing to see all that, the Milli Vanilli part of his life, which was really, really cool. We got a Blu-ray coming out, and we got about 60 minutes, about an hour of extras on it, which offer a lot more insight that we actually didn't make the cut with Chavo Guerrero and Kevin Cross, and and just more Lucha Underground people and things like that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't wait to see more from this. There was so much in here, and I would even take a reality show of just like Ian and Dasha just hanging out, talking about stuff. There was just that back and forth was so good. I want to know real quick, how long were you following Ian for? There's footage that went back to 2006. Was that yours, or how long was this in process for?
Filming was about 3 years.
Okay.
About 2 to 3 years following him around. And then worked with Danny Palmer he was from Vice. He did season 1. He did some episodes of season 1 editing for for Dark Side of the Ring.
Mm-hmm.
And so he had a real good sense of, wrestling and all that. And so we went down this rabbit hole and grabbing footage and digging for that. So we ended up getting all this great footage from years ago. And of course, the cameras have been following Vampiro for over 20 years.
Wow.
So it's just point and shoot, follow him, but also just grabbing archive. And then the whole process is kind of liken it to threading a needle and trying to find, put the story together.
Well, that's really interesting, because it does feel like it's for just 3 years, I felt like I got a whole life story out of it. So it's really awesome to see that. Thank you guys so much. One quick last thing. Any horror movies you guys have watched recently that you guys like to suggest to your people? I know both of you have, with you, Michael, with Turbo Kid, and Ian's whole history of weird horror. You guys see anything recently you guys want to suggest for our viewers?
I'm watching this series. It's called CNN. You turn that on every day, and there's just all kind of scary shit on there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a great question. Being managing partner of Raven Banner, we release 2 movies a month. We got so many films, but I guess most of it would be Tigers Not Afraid is probably one of my favorite ones that we handled. Tigers Not Afraid.
Said that.
And Autopsy Jane Doe is probably
amazing film there.
I think they're
so
both 2
creepy.
very different films,
Yeah.
but those are the ones that we're kind of pushing, that we love right now.
Yeah, me too. Tigers aren't what?
Tigers Are Not Afraid.
Yeah, that one. Dude, I don't watch movies anymore. I'm really into documentaries right now, and because of what I'm studying and things like that. So I'm a real big Ancient Aliens fan. I love the conspiracy stuff. I'm really into the history of paranormal activity and things like that. So I prefer to study. Right now, I'm not really into the movie thing at all. Watching it to be entertained, right?
Yeah.
I'm on a vibe right now where I'm learning as much as I can. So.
All right, guys, that was it for my interview with Ian Hodgkinson, known as Vampiro, and director Michael Paszt of the new documentary, Nail in the Coffin. I had such a good conversation with it. As you can see, Vampiro was a fun, intimidating guest, but he was so nice. All right, guys, hope you guys liked the interview. Subscribe to Flickering Myth because we make videos like this every single week. Give me a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and comment down below. Let's talk about Vampiro, WCW, anything down below.